Hello, my best students, and welcome again to your channel, Native Flow. Let me ask you something honestly. Why does your brain suddenly become slow the moment you try to speak English? You know the words, you understand the sentence, you even know the grammar. But when somebody speaks to you in real life, your mind freezes. And before you answer, your brain does something dangerous. It starts translating English into your native language, then back into English again. And while your brain is still translating, the conversation already moved on. The other person is waiting. Your confidence starts shaking. Your mouth becomes slower. And suddenly, you feel like your English disappeared. But today, I want to tell you something that might completely change the way you learn English forever. Your biggest problem is not vocabulary. It is not grammar. It is not pronunciation. It is translation. Yes, translation is secretly destroying your speaking speed. And the worst part is, most learners don't even realize it. They think they need more grammar books, more vocabulary lists, more English apps. But the real problem is much deeper. Their brain never learned to react directly in English. So in this video, we are going to completely rewire the way your brain speaks English. You will understand why translation makes you slow, why fluent speakers react instantly, why your brain freezes during conversations, and how to finally start thinking in English naturally, without panic, without fear, and without translating every single word in your head. And trust me, by the end of this video, you will never look at English practice the same way again. Because fluency is not about knowing more English. It is about reacting faster in English. So stay with me until the end, because this may become the video that finally changes the way your brain speaks forever. Now, let's begin with the first hidden truth nobody tells English learners. The first hidden truth: translation is making your brain slow. Let's begin with something that might sound shocking at first, but once you understand it, everything about your English journey will suddenly make sense. Your brain is not slow. Your English is not bad. And you are definitely not stupid. The real problem is your brain is doing too much work before you speak. Every single time someone talks to you in English, your brain starts running a secret translation process in the background. English sentence, translated into your native language, understood, then translated back into English again, and finally spoken out loud. And all of this happens in just a few seconds. But here's the problem. Real conversations move fast. Native speakers do not wait for your translation process. While your brain is still building the sentence, the conversation already changed direction. And that is exactly why you feel pressure during speaking. Not because you don't know English, but because your brain is trapped inside a slow translation cycle. Let me show you something very important. Imagine somebody asks you, "How was your day?" A fluent speaker immediately reacts. Pretty good, actually. Tiring, but productive. It was amazing. Fast, natural, automatic. But many learners do something completely different. First, they hear the sentence. Then they mentally translate, "How was your day?" into their native language. Then they create the answer in their native language first. Then they try to rebuild the answer in English. Then they panic because they want perfect grammar. And then silence. Or maybe, my day was good. Very slow, very stressful, very unnatural. And after the conversation ends, they blame themselves. "I'm bad at speaking." No, you are not bad at speaking. Your brain is simply overloaded. And honestly, this is one of the biggest differences between learners and fluent speakers. Fluent speakers do not build English sentence by sentence through translation. They react directly to meaning. That's why their speaking feels effortless. Now, let me tell you something very important that most English teachers never explain clearly. Your brain was never designed to translate languages forever. Translation is only a temporary bridge. It helps beginners survive. But if you stay dependent on translation for years, that bridge becomes a prison. And many English learners stay trapped there for a very long time. They keep learning more vocabulary, more grammar, more rules, but their speaking speed never changes. Why? Because the problem is no longer knowledge. The problem is reaction speed. Your brain became addicted to translating before speaking. And once that habit becomes automatic, your fluency starts dying slowly. Now listen carefully, because this next idea can completely change your English forever. Fluent English is not built through translation. It is built through direct connection. What does that mean? When native speakers hear the word apple, they do not translate it into another language. Their brain instantly sees the image. The meaning appears immediately. No middle step, no delay, no mental traffic, just instant understanding. That is exactly how your English brain must work too. For example, when you hear, "I'm starving," your brain should not say, "What does starving mean in my language?" Instead, your brain should instantly feel hunger, emotion, meaning, image, feeling, direct connection. That is the secret. And this is why children become fluent faster than adults sometimes, not because they are smarter, but because they connect language directly to experience, not to translation. A child hears, "Come here," and they connect it to movement, not grammar, not translation. Just action and meaning. That is natural language acquisition. And honestly, this is exactly what many adult learners forgot how to do. They turned English into a school subject instead of a living language. And the moment English becomes only grammar and translation, speaking becomes painful. Now, let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever experienced this? You understand a movie perfectly until suddenly someone asks you a simple question in English and your mind goes completely blank? That feeling is not lack of intelligence. It is translation delay. Your brain is trying to build the perfect sentence before speaking, but fluent speakers do not speak perfectly first. They react first. That is a massive difference. And here's another dangerous thing translation does. It destroys confidence. Because when you translate, you become too aware of mistakes. You start checking every word, every tense, every sentence structure. And suddenly speaking no longer feels natural. It feels like an exam. And nobody speaks fluently during an exam. Real fluency feels relaxed, fast, emotional, automatic, imperfect sometimes, but alive. That is why some people with basic vocabulary sound fluent, while others with advanced grammar still struggle to speak naturally. Because fluency is not only knowledge. Fluency is speed of connection. Now here comes the beautiful part. You can actually train your brain to stop translating. Yes, your brain can be rewired. And no, you do not need to move to America. You do not need expensive courses. You do not need perfect grammar. You simply need to retrain the connection between English and meaning. Little by little, day after day, your brain will slowly stop depending on translation. And one day, something magical happens. You hear English, and you simply understand. You answer instantly, without building the sentence in your native language first. That moment feels incredible, because for the first time, English starts feeling natural, not foreign, not stressful, not heavy, natural. And trust me, that moment changes everything. Because once your brain stops translating, Your speaking speed changes dramatically. Your confidence rises. Your reactions become faster. Your conversations become smoother. And suddenly, English stops feeling like hard work. It starts feeling like communication. So from today, I want you to remember one sentence forever. Fluent speakers do not translate first. They react first. That is the first hidden truth. And in the next section, I'm going to show you exactly how to train your brain to react directly in English without panic, without freezing, and without mentally translating every word. The first brain shift: stop translating words, start seeing meaning. Now that you understand why translation is slowing your speaking down, we need to talk about something even more important. How do fluent speakers actually think? Because this is where the real transformation begins. And honestly, once you understand this mental shift, your entire relationship with English will start changing. Most learners think fluency comes from knowing thousands of words, but that's not completely true. Fluency comes from how fast your brain connects English to meaning, not translation, meaning. And that small difference changes everything. Let me show you something interesting. When you hear the word coffee, what happens inside your mind? For many learners, their brain immediately translates the word into their native language first. But fluent speakers don't do that. Their brain instantly creates an image, a smell, a feeling, a memory. Maybe they imagine a hot cup, a cafe, morning energy, a conversation with a friend. That is direct connection. And that is exactly what makes their speaking fast. Because the brain is reacting to meaning immediately, not stopping to translate every word like a dictionary. Now listen carefully, because this may become one of the most important ideas in your English journey. Your brain cannot become fast in English. If every sentence must first travel through another language, that creates traffic, delay, mental pressure, and eventually fear. Imagine trying to drive through a city where every road has a checkpoint. That's exactly what translation does to your speaking. Every sentence must stop, be checked, be translated, be rebuilt, then finally spoken. No wonder your speaking feels exhausting sometimes. Your brain is doing double work during every conversation, but fluent speakers removed the checkpoints. English goes directly into meaning. That is why they react naturally. Now, here's the beautiful part. You can actually train this skill. And honestly, it is much easier than most people think. You do not need to force yourself to think in English. That advice is too vague. Instead, you train your brain through direct association, step by step, little by little. Let me show you how. From now on, when you learn new English words, stop learning them like translations. Learn them like experiences. For example, don't study tired, native language translation. Instead, connect tired to heavy eyes, low energy, wanting to sleep, coming home after a long day. Feel the word, visualize it, experience it. That creates emotional memory. And emotional memory is much stronger than translation memory. This is why you sometimes remember emotional movie scenes more easily than vocabulary lists. Because emotions create deeper brain connections. And honestly, this is also why many people understand English songs better than grammar exercises. Their brain connects to feeling, not only rules. Now let me give you a very powerful exercise that can completely start changing your brain structure. I call it the no translation reaction. Very simple. When you hear simple English, you must react instantly with meaning only. No translation allowed. For example, I'm hungry. Do not translate it. Instead, immediately imagine food, hunger, eating, restaurant, pizza, anything visual. Another example, It's freezing outside. Do not translate. Feel cold. Imagine winter. Imagine snow. Imagine wearing a jacket. This trains your brain to connect English directly to experience. And after enough repetition, something amazing starts happening. Your brain stops asking, "What does this mean in my language?" and starts understanding English automatically. That is the beginning of real fluency. Now, let me tell you something very important. At first, this process feels uncomfortable because your brain is addicted to translation. It feels safer. Translation gives the illusion of control. But fluency is not built through control. It is built through trust and repetition. You must allow your brain to experience English naturally, even if you do not understand every single word perfectly. This is exactly how children learn languages. They do not understand 100% in the beginning. They absorb patterns, sounds, emotions, repetition, and slowly, their brain builds direct understanding. But many adult learners panic too quickly. The moment they hear one unknown word, they immediately leave the conversation mentally. They start translating, analyzing, overthinking, and suddenly, the listening flow is broken. That is why I always say, fluency is not about understanding every word. It is about understanding the message fast enough to react naturally. That is a completely different mindset. And honestly, this mindset alone can reduce so much speaking anxiety, because now your goal changes. Instead of, "I must speak perfect English," your new goal becomes, "I must communicate meaning naturally." That is much more powerful. Now let's do a small mental experiment together. Imagine someone tells you, "That movie was insane." If you translate word by word, your brain may get confused, but fluent speakers instantly understand the emotion: exciting, crazy, intense, amazing, meaning first, translation second, or sometimes never. That is how natural English works in real life. And this is why some learners struggle with fast conversations, not because the English is impossible, but because they are still listening word by word instead of meaning by meaning. Native speakers do not process language word by word. They process chunks of meaning, emotional signals, patterns. That is why you must start training your brain differently from today, not like a translator, like a communicator. And here's another important truth. Translation often destroys speaking rhythm. Because while fluent speakers are flowing naturally, your brain is stopping every few seconds to search for equivalent words. That creates hesitation, pauses, broken confidence, and eventually fear of speaking. But once your brain starts reacting directly in English, your rhythm changes, your flow improves, your speaking becomes lighter, faster, more emotional, more alive. Now I want you to remember this forever. English is not math. It is not about calculating perfect sentences slowly. It is about human connection, emotion, reaction, expression. And the faster your brain connects English directly to meaning, the faster your fluency grows. So from today, stop asking, "How do I translate this?" and start asking, "What does this feel like?" That question changes everything, because the moment your brain starts feeling English instead of translating English, your speaking speed begins to transform naturally. And in the next section, I'm going to show you the powerful daily exercises that fluent speakers unknowingly use to train fast English reactions, without stress, without memorizing huge grammar books, and without freezing during conversations. The daily reaction training. How fluent speakers answer so fast. Now let me show you something that changes almost every fluent speaker's life, even if they don't realize they're doing it. Fluent speakers train reactions, not just knowledge. That's why conversations feel easy for them. And honestly, this is one of the biggest differences between learners who stay stuck for years and learners who suddenly start speaking naturally. Most people study English like a school subject, vocabulary lists, grammar exercises, reading silently, watching videos passively. But real conversations are not exams. Real conversations are fast emotional reactions. Somebody asks you something, and your brain must respond immediately. No time for translating, no time for building perfect grammar, no time for overthinking, just reaction. That's why fluent speakers sound smooth. Their brain already trained automatic responses. And the beautiful thing is, you can train this too. You do not need to become smarter. You simply need to build faster English reaction pathways. Think about driving a car. At first, every movement feels difficult. Mirrors, pedals, turning, parking. Your brain thinks about every small action. But after enough repetition, you stop thinking consciously. Your reactions become automatic. Language fluency works exactly the same way. At first, your brain works slowly because every sentence feels new. But after enough reaction training, English starts moving automatically. And honestly, this is where many learners fail. They study English, but they never train reaction speed. That's like reading books about football without ever touching the ball. You understand the theory, but your body never learned the movement. Now let me give you one of the most powerful fluency exercises you can practice every day. I call it the instant reaction method. Very simple. You train your brain to answer immediately in English, without translation. Here's how. Step 1. Choose simple daily questions. Examples. How are you? What did you eat today? What are you doing? What do you think? What's your favorite movie? Now here comes the important rule. You must answer immediately, even if the answer is simple, even if the grammar is imperfect, even if you make mistakes. Why? Because we are training reaction speed, not perfection. For example, how are you? Do not pause for 10 seconds building the perfect sentence. Immediately say, I'm good, a little tired, pretty excited today, fast, natural, alive. That is exactly how fluency starts growing. Now listen carefully, because this next idea is extremely important. The longer you wait before speaking, the stronger the translation habit becomes. But the faster you react, the stronger your direct English connection becomes. That is why hesitation is dangerous for fluency. Every long pause teaches your brain English is difficult, but fast reactions teach your brain English is natural, and your brain always believes what you repeatedly show it. Now let me give you another powerful exercise. This one is incredibly effective for B1, B2 learners. I call it the 3-second rule. Here's how it works. Whenever you hear English, you must react within 3 seconds. Not perfectly, just naturally. For example, you hear, "What's your dream?" Immediately answer, "I want to travel. I want freedom. I want to become fluent." Simple, quick, emotional. No translation, no grammar analysis, just direct communication. At first, your answers may feel small. That's okay. Small, fast English is much more powerful than advanced, slow English. And honestly, this is another hidden truth many learners never hear. Fluent speakers do not always use complicated vocabulary. They use simple English quickly and comfortably. That is the real secret. Now let's go even deeper. One major reason fluent speakers react fast is because they already have emotional response patterns stored in their brain. For example, "Oh, really? No way. That's crazy. I totally agree. I'm not sure about that. That makes sense." To be honest, these are reaction phrases, and native speakers use them constantly, not because they are advanced, but because they create flow. So from today, I want you to start collecting English reactions, not only vocabulary. That changes everything. Instead of memorizing random difficult words, train common emotional reactions. Why? Because conversations are emotional, not academic. Think about your native language. Do you always use complicated words? No. Most daily conversations are built from repeated emotional reactions. That's exactly how English fluency works too. Now let me show you a very powerful daily training routine. This routine can slowly eliminate your translation habit if you practice consistently. 5 minutes only, that's it. Minute 1. Question reaction training. Ask yourself 5 simple questions out loud and answer immediately. No waiting. Minute 2. Emotional reactions. Practice common reactions. No way. That's amazing. I don't think so. Honestly? That sounds great. Say them naturally with emotion. Minute 3. Mirror speaking. Look at yourself and answer random questions instantly. This builds confidence under pressure. Minute 4. Shadow reaction practice. Listen to short English clips and immediately react after the speaker, like real conversation. Minute 5. Fast thinking challenge. Choose one topic: food, movies, travel, money, dreams. Then speak continuously for 30 seconds without stopping. No translation allowed. Even simple English is okay. The goal is movement, not perfection. Now here's something important most learners misunderstand. You do not become fluent by waiting until your English becomes perfect. You become fluent by practicing imperfect English consistently. That is how confidence is built. And honestly, confidence is not something you feel before speaking. Confidence is created after repeated speaking experiences. Action first, confidence later. That changes everything psychologically, because many learners wait for confidence before speaking. But fluent speakers became confident because they kept speaking, even when they sounded awkward, even when they made mistakes, even when they felt embarrassed sometimes. And this is exactly why reaction training matters so much. It teaches your brain, I can survive conversations. That feeling slowly destroys speaking fear. Now let me tell you something powerful. Your brain is always adapting. Always. Whatever you repeat daily becomes easier. If you repeat translation daily, translation becomes automatic. But if you repeat direct English reactions daily, fast speaking becomes automatic. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. 5 focused minutes every day can completely reshape your fluency over time. And honestly, most learners massively underestimate this. They think fluency comes from giant study sessions, but real fluency usually grows through tiny repeated reactions, day after day, moment after moment, sentence after sentence, until one day, you suddenly notice something incredible. You answered in English before translating. That moment feels magical because your brain is finally beginning to trust English naturally. And once that process begins, your speaking speed changes dramatically. Your pauses become shorter, your confidence becomes stronger, your conversations become smoother, and for the first time, English starts feeling like communication instead of mental work. So from today, stop training only knowledge, train reactions. Because fluent speakers are not simply people who know English. They are people whose brain learn to react in English naturally. And in the next section, I'm going to show you why trying to speak perfect English is secretly destroying your fluency, and why many confident speakers improve faster precisely because they stop chasing perfection. The dangerous trap. Why perfection is secretly killing your fluency. Now let's talk about something that silently destroys millions of English learners every single day. Perfection. And honestly, this may be one of the biggest reasons your speaking still feels stressful. Because many learners are not actually trying to communicate. They are trying to avoid mistakes. And those are two completely different goals. Let me explain. Imagine somebody asks you a simple question in English. What do you usually do on weekends? A fluent speaker answers naturally, I usually relax, watch movies, maybe go outside with friends. Simple, fast, comfortable. But many learners do something completely different. Their brain immediately starts checking grammar. Should I use present simple? Maybe my pronunciation is wrong. What if I forget a word? What if my sentence sounds stupid? What if I make a mistake? And while their brain is still searching for the perfect sentence, the conversation becomes awkward, not because their English is bad, but because perfection created fear. Now listen carefully, because this next sentence is extremely important. Fluent speakers focus on communication first, not perfection first. That changes everything. Most native speakers themselves do not speak perfectly all the time. They pause, they repeat words, they simplify sentences, they make grammar mistakes sometimes, but conversations still flow naturally. Why? Because communication matters more than perfection in real life. And honestly, this is one of the biggest mindset shifts you must develop if you want faster speaking speed. You must stop treating every conversation like a grammar exam, because the moment your brain enters exam mode, your fluency starts collapsing. Your speaking becomes tense, slow, careful, robotic, and that tension creates even more mistakes. That's why sometimes the harder you try to sound perfect, the worse your English becomes. Now, here's something very interesting psychologically. Your brain cannot focus deeply on grammar, translation, pronunciation, vocabulary, confidence, and emotional connection at the same time during fast conversation. That's too much mental pressure. Something always breaks, and usually, it's fluency. That is why many learners sound amazing when writing, but freeze while speaking. Writing gives you time to think. Speaking demands real-time reaction, and real-time communication requires freedom, not perfection. Now, let me tell you something powerful that fluent speakers understand naturally. Mistakes are not the enemy of fluency. Fear is. Fear slows reaction speed. Fear creates hesitation. Fear increases translation. Fear destroys speaking rhythm. And perfectionism feeds that fear every single day. Because perfectionism constantly tells your brain, don't speak unless the sentence is perfect. But fluent speakers developed a completely different mindset. They say, speak first, improve later. That mindset creates momentum. And momentum is one of the hidden secrets of fluency. Now, let me ask you something honestly. How many times did you know the answer in English, but stayed silent because you were afraid of making a mistake? That silence is expensive, because every moment of silence teaches your brain English is dangerous. But every speaking attempt, even imperfect ones, teaches your brain, I can communicate. That is how fluency grows. Little moments of courage repeated daily. Now, here's another truth nobody talks about enough. Perfectionism creates emotional exhaustion because your brain never relaxes during conversations. You are constantly monitoring yourself, checking yourself, correcting yourself, judging yourself, and eventually, speaking starts feeling mentally painful. That is why some learners study for years, but still avoid real conversations, not because they lack knowledge, but because speaking became emotionally stressful. And honestly, this is exactly why some confident learners improve faster than smart perfectionists. Confident learners speak more, experiment more, practice more, make more mistakes. And because of that, their brain adapts faster. Their reactions become quicker. Their speaking becomes natural sooner. Now, let me give you a powerful mindset shift that can completely reduce speaking anxiety. From today, replace this sentence: I must speak perfect English. With this sentence, I must express my ideas clearly. That changes everything psychologically, because now your goal becomes communication, not performance. And communication is much more human, much more natural, much more freeing. Now, here's something very important. Perfectionism also destroys listening confidence. Why? Because perfectionists panic whenever they miss one word, but fluent communicators focus on the general message. For example, if somebody says a long sentence and you miss one small word, you can still understand the conversation. That's exactly how native speakers communicate too. Nobody understands 100% of every sentence perfectly all the time. Real communication is flexible, human, messy sometimes, and honestly, accepting that reality can completely relax your English brain. Now let's talk about one of the most dangerous habits perfectionists develop: waiting too long before speaking. This is extremely harmful for fluency because every long pause increases mental pressure. And the more pressure increases, the more your brain depends on translation again. That's why many learners say, I can speak alone, but not with people. Because during real conversations, pressure activates perfectionism, and perfectionism activates fear. But here's the beautiful thing. You can train yourself out of this cycle, little by little, through fast, imperfect speaking practice. That's why reaction training matters so much. Your goal is not perfect English. Your goal is comfortable communication. That is a much healthier fluency target. Now let me give you a practical challenge that can completely change your speaking confidence. For the next 7 days, allow yourself to speak imperfect English on purpose. Yes, on purpose. Do not stop every sentence to correct yourself. Do not panic over small grammar mistakes. Do not translate for 10 seconds searching for the perfect word. Just communicate, flow, react, express yourself. Because your brain needs freedom before it can become fluent. And honestly, something amazing usually happens when learners try this challenge. Their speaking speed suddenly increases. Their confidence rises. Their anxiety drops. And conversations start feeling more natural. Why? Because they finally removed the mental handcuffs created by perfectionism. Now listen carefully. Because this may become one of the most important sentences in your English journey. Perfect English spoken slowly with fear sounds less fluent than simple English spoken confidently with flow. That is the truth. Confidence creates fluency perception. Flow creates fluency perception. Natural rhythm creates fluency perception, not perfect grammar alone. So from today, stop trying to sound like a perfect English textbook. Start sounding like a real human being communicating naturally, because fluency is not perfection. Fluency is freedom. Freedom to react. Freedom to express. Freedom to communicate without fear controlling your voice. And in the final section of this video, I'm going to show you the deep truth that changes fluent speakers forever, the moment they finally stop seeing English as a school subject and start seeing it as their new voice. The final shift. English is not a subject. It is your new voice. Now let's stop for a moment and talk honestly. Not as teacher and student, not as grammar and vocabulary, just human to human. Because this final truth may become the most important thing you hear in your English journey. English is not just another subject you study. It is a voice, a new way to express yourself, a new way to connect with people, a new version of you. And honestly, many learners stay trapped for years because they never truly understand this. They keep treating English like school homework, rules, exercises, translation, memorization. But language was never meant to live inside notebooks only. Language is alive. It breathes, it moves, it carries emotions, dreams, jokes, opinions, stories, personality. And the moment you stop seeing English as study and start seeing it as communication, everything begins to change. Because fluent speakers are not constantly thinking, am I using the correct tense? They are thinking, how do I express myself? That is a completely different mental world. Now listen carefully, because this next idea can completely transform your confidence. You do not need to become another person to speak English fluently. You simply need to allow your real personality to exist in English. That changes everything emotionally. Many learners become robotic when they speak English because they are trying to sound correct all the time. But real fluency sounds human, relaxed, natural, emotional, alive. That's why sometimes a learner with simple vocabulary feels more fluent than someone using advanced words, because confidence and emotional presence matter. Now let me ask you something important. When you speak your native language, do you think about grammar every second? Of course not. You focus on ideas, feelings, reactions, humor, stories. And that is exactly where your English journey must eventually go to. Not perfect translation, not perfect textbook sentences, real expression. Because the truth is, people connect with energy more than perfection. They remember confidence, emotion, clarity, not whether your grammar was 100% perfect. And honestly, this realization changes everything psychologically, because suddenly, English stops feeling like a test you must survive and starts feeling like a tool you can use to live more fully, to connect more deeply, to express yourself more freely. Now let me tell you something powerful. Every fluent speaker you admire today once sounded slow too, awkward too, confused too. They paused. They translated. They made mistakes. They forgot words. But the difference is, they kept speaking anyway. And slowly, their brain adapted. Their reactions became faster. Their confidence became stronger. Their English became automatic. Not because they were special, but because they practiced consistently without giving up. That is the real secret nobody talks about enough. Fluency is not built in one magical moment. It is built quietly, in small daily decisions, in repeated reactions, in awkward practice sessions, in late-night shadowing, in mirror speaking, in tiny moments where you choose courage instead of silence. That is how fluent people are created. Now, here's something very important. Your accent is not your enemy. Your mistakes are not your enemy. Your current level is not your enemy. The real enemy is silence. Because silence keeps your English trapped inside your head forever. But every time you speak, even imperfectly, you break that silence little by little. And eventually, your voice becomes stronger than your fear. That is the transformation. Now think about this honestly. How many opportunities are waiting for you behind English? New friends, new jobs, travel, confidence, freedom, knowledge, connections around the world, maybe even a completely different future. English is not just vocabulary, it is access. And the moment you truly understand that, your motivation changes deeply, because now you are not studying English. You are building a new version of yourself, one conversation at a time. Now listen carefully, because this next sentence matters deeply. You do not become fluent when you stop making mistakes. You become fluent when you stop being afraid of making them. That is the real breakthrough. And honestly, that is why so many learners suddenly improve fast after they finally relax. Because fear was slowing everything down. Fear created translation. Fear created hesitation. Fear created silence. But courage creates movement. And movement creates fluency. Now, before we finish, I want you to remember something forever. Your brain is already capable of fluency. Right now, at this moment, it simply needs repetition, confidence, exposure, and consistent speaking experiences. That's it. Not perfection, not genius, not talent, consistency. So from today, I want you to stop asking, when will I become fluent? And start asking, did I train my voice today? That question is much more powerful because fluency is not built through wishing. It is built through daily action, little by little, sentence by sentence, reaction by reaction, until one day, English no longer feels foreign. It simply feels like another part of you. And honestly, that moment is beautiful because suddenly you stop translating, you stop panicking, you stop freezing, and for the first time, you simply speak naturally, comfortably, confidently, like your brain finally trusts the language. So before you leave this video, I want you to say this out loud with me. I will stop translating every word. I will stop fearing mistakes. I will train my reactions every day. I will speak even when I feel nervous. I will build fluency step by step. English is no longer just a subject. It is my new voice. And remember this forever. The people who become fluent are not always the smartest learners. They are the learners who refuse to stay silent. So speak, practice, react, make mistakes, grow. Because your fluency does not begin when your English becomes perfect. It begins the moment you stop being afraid to use it. So now, you finally understand the truth. Translation is not helping your fluency anymore. It is slowing your reactions, breaking your confidence, and teaching your brain to depend on another language before speaking English. But from today, that changes. Because now you understand something most learners never realize. Fluent speakers do not translate first. They react first. That is the difference. And honestly, if you practice the methods from this video consistently, your brain will slowly start changing. Your reactions will become faster. Your pauses will become shorter. Your confidence will become stronger. And one day, without even noticing exactly when it happened, you will answer in English automatically. No translation, no panic, no freezing, just natural communication. And trust me, that feeling is incredible because for the first time, English stops feeling like hard work and starts feeling like your own voice. So please, do not watch this video and forget it tomorrow. Train. Even 5 minutes a day matters because small daily reactions create massive long-term fluency. Now, I want you to do something important. Comment below, I will stop translating and start reacting in English. Write it, own it, train it, live it. And if this video helped you understand your English struggles differently, subscribe to our channel Native Flow because we are not here only to teach English. We are here to transform the way you experience English completely. And remember, your fluency begins the moment your fear stops controlling your voice. So keep speaking, keep reacting, keep growing, and I will see you in the next video.